Some of the comments that we've received, it's kind of funny. Somebody commented on there, the most boomer clip of the day that I've seen or something to that effect. Which
This is one of the greatest samples of people who get it and don't get it. It's only, what, 60 seconds? Should I just play it?
Oh my gosh, this just drives me crazy. In order to get this done, we needed this one component. Where is that? I don't know, I emailed them and I never heard back. What they did is they just sent off an email. I've done my job now, and they move along doing nothing while everybody else is literally unable to get anything done.
It's very quickly, it says, this is the most boomer clip I've seen all day. You know what I love about that? Is I'm a Gen Xer. and my producer is a millennial. Quite a compliment to the boomers, that's all I can say.
and the guy that edited this is a Gen Zer.
Is a Gen Zer. He is the one who picked this point out because he thought it was the best one. There are 3 generations, none boomer wise, but wow, that's pretty fascinating.
Welcome to Durand On Demand. Excited to be in our new facility, our new office here, the official Dragon Lair. And you can't see the entirety of it. There's a basketball court, pickleball court down there, which is super sick. We were just shooting some hoops here. But Dave, this is an incredible place. How do you feel about it?
Oh, it's fun to be here. I mean, it came with the theme song. Nico did, if you ever hear the theme song for before the show, it's called Dragon Slayer. Nico and his team surprised me one day and all of a sudden started playing this, and it is just very cool. And so you pipe that into here, it sounds pretty cool. But go to how do you find it?
YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify. It's called Dragon Slayer.
Called Dragon Slayer. But also there's a couple of Dragon Slayer songs. So how do they know which one is the one you wrote?
Nico Santana.
And by the way, Nico performs it too. He's very talented. So people are giving us I will tell you this. I'm so biased because you wrote it about our business, about leading giants, all that kind of stuff in there. But man, it's a great song. And I hate rap. And Nico's a good rap artist. I literally can't stand it. But it fires me up. I don't know. Hey, give us your feedback. Go listen to the song.
Yeah.
And then come back and post. Did you like it? We already had somebody go, oh, that rap music before your show is atrocious. But I think maybe listen to the whole song. If you're familiar with Durand On Demand, you've been watching us for a while, you'll hear a lot of the common themes throughout the show that are in there, which is pretty cool. But it's fun to be here at the Dragon Lair. We're not done.
Yeah.
We're going to expand this. We're going to put in this is my man cave. Really, that's really what it is. That's what it's for, too. We've got pickleball and basketball. We've got a golf simulator here. We've got a big full bar and kitchen and theater. But I was like, man, this would just be cool to work out of here too. So we kind of set up camp here, and then I'm expanding it, and we're going to build a theater, like a 50-person theater, to do executive coaching, where people can come in for a few days, and we can really dive into the guts of their business. So they can get kind of like a personalized workshop on how to grow, which is that is, Nico, of all the things, when you work with somebody, they have this aha moment. Because first of all, the people that come to us are smart. They're already doing something. They know their stuff. They're not fumbling around necessarily, but there's just answers they don't have. And unless you've actually kind of gone there before and worked through that and said, I know what it feels like to go from that million to 10 to 100 to 300 million, then you can show them and they can say, oh, I see. And oftentimes it's a simple thing. It's like maybe something with personnel. Other times it's a little bit more strategic, but those are just great workshops for that. So we're gonna be able to host some of them here.
Yeah, it's funny because I recently just watched a reel, and I think the word entrepreneur has been so watered down that it really means solopreneur nowadays.
Yeah.
And what we're doing effectively is teaching people to go from entrepreneur to CEO giant, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the solopreneurship is a prisoner. I actually call it solo prisonership. Because the person, they leave their job thinking they're going to have all sorts of freedom and they want to work for themselves. And they now become, you've heard me say it before, but they're now the marketing person, the salesperson, they're the janitor, they're production person, they're the accountant, they're the customer service person, they're the technology person. You can't do all those things. And so they're working 7 days a week just to stay afloat. And, now their pride kicks in. They want to prove everybody they were right. And so they don't want to fail. So they work extra hard. And they oftentimes become victimized and like, well, how can I'm working so hard because you can't trust people, you can't find good people. And I just have to free them from the lies. You can find good people. You can scale your business. There are answers. There are financial answers. There are marketing answers. There are solution answers. There's human resource answers. And if we just show them the very small gap between where they are now as a solopreneur and where they could be even in 6 months with a thriving organization and people on their team where they recover their life back while they were accelerating their income. That is the key. You get your life back while you intensify, you 10x your income. And this is a very necessary and good thing for people to do.
I think people underestimate the skills required to get to that level, but it's not that hard. I think the way that you approach it, Dave, and you teach it, it makes it sound like, wow, this is totally doable.
It is doable. I mean, the thing about it, it's interesting is like, I remember this just with my dad. My dad was so handy and so good with things. And my brothers are also the same way. I learned that I actually am pretty decent with that, but I just don't like it. I just don't like if somebody's like, hey, let's go build a deck.
Yep.
Okay, no, that's not my, I'm just not interested in it. Okay, I can do it. And if I'm going to be hanging out with some good friends and we're building a deck and enjoying going skiing afterwards or something, sure, I can enjoy the day, definitely. And I understand the value of hard work. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. But where you all have different inclinations, right? And that was just not mine. But I remember, though, having this moment where, I'm a full-grown adult and I've got my own tools and I'm doing things, and my dad comes over and asks him for some help on a project, and he's like, your tools are horrible, man. And so he brings over his own tools, and we do the job twice as fast. It was 5 times more pleasurable. Yep. I actually kind of felt like I'm just not good at this and I'm slow with it. He introduces me to the right tools and then some better techniques, clearly, too. And I was just effective and efficient. And what's really interesting is that my inclination for the desire to do those things also went up. Certainly has not overtaken my life, because I'd be doing weekend projects like that if it has. But I'm capable, and I certainly enter into those things with a little bit more of a skip in my step if I'm gonna do them. But the right tools, you can do it. And the same business is the same way.
Well, I want to invite you who are regular listeners on Durand On Demand, whether you're listening to the podcast version of this or on our YouTube channel, to check out leadinggiants.com. You can sign up for our Scale to Freedom seminar, and you can go ahead and ask your questions if you enter the VIP package. So a lot of cool stuff there. Definitely excited for it. But Dave, I don't want to divert from the topic at hand here, which is feedback.
Yeah.
And some of the comments that we've received recently, it's kind of funny. I sometimes I laugh at them, and then I realize that you've seen them too, and then you'll text me about it, and I'm like, yep, I thought that was a useless comment, so to speak.
So you know that I don't pay too much attention to them. I actually, when I brought you on, I said one of the things that I loathe is social media and the comments and things like that. But I'll occasionally just kind of tap in to see what's going on. And this morning is great. So it almost makes sense for me to even just...
And not to interrupt you, but the reason why you looked at the comments was because I asked you to
told
look
me,
at the
you said,
comments.
I said, I didn't even know what you posted. Uh-huh. You said, you should see the post today. Here's the topic. And of course, we've got Aiden, who does a great job. He's in New Zealand, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he does some of our shorts. He puts them together. And so he'll put a short together from a longer form and pop it up there. And then, I have people tell me all the time, hey, I saw your short on this, or I don't even know what they had. So, okay, so this is that example. But anyway, I think it's only, 60 seconds? Should I just play it?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my gosh, this just drives me crazy. In order to get this done, we needed this one component. Where is that? I don't know, I emailed them and I never heard back. What they did is they just sent off an email. I've done my job now, and they move along doing nothing while everybody else is literally unable to get anything done. At my company, they call it Dave Duranding somebody to death. When I say, hey, we need this component by this day at this time, if you come to the meeting and we don't have that component, and I say, well, where is it? And you go, I don't know, I emailed them. Oh, no, that is never gonna work. That's never gonna work. I didn't ask you to email them. Get the component was the job, not email the person about get it. And when you hear that assignment as email them, you just don't care. You either don't understand the importance of it, you don't understand how it's connected to everything else. That's the type of reason that there is a delay. And those are absolutely, without question, invalid. They are, without question, solvable. And the great leader is steely about this.
To me, I would think there's no controversy there. Now, this is a short, so it misses all sorts of context.
Right.
And I do build around the because they're, I think a short is effective, and this one is kind of going viral because you hear the intensity of my voice. But if you hear what things generally surround those things, it's like, hey, you got to be fair, and you got to okay. But here's really what the best part about this is that still on the surface there should be nothing debatable about this. This is like, if you are successful, you understand that. Yeah. If you are unsuccessful, you don't understand that. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the comments tell us that. So this is about feedback. This is one of the greatest samples of people who get it and don't get it, and one of the greatest samples for how to actually receive feedback effectively. Okay, so let me just go through some of them. I think I maybe should start with like a positive one and then get into some of the other more entertaining ones. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, this is great. I like this guy already. If you've ever had a roof replaced, you know that nails on the ground can be an issue. We, meaning this person's like, you can tell he's like a contractor. He owns a small business and he does roofing. He says, we use tarps to catch most of the debris and then magnets to help pick up all of the nails. I would ask an employee, did you get all the nails? And the employee would reply, well, I ran the magnet. And he would reply to the employee, your job is to get the nails out of the grass so their child or pet does not get a nail in their foot. It's not to walk a magnet around the yard. Moral of the story, this is still the commenter, moral of the story, just because you performed an action doesn't mean you accomplished the goal. This is brilliant. I mean, and it's a great example. Full context, totally gets it, understands it. All right, but this is what another person says. It says, people are waking up and realizing that companies and corporations don't care about them, so putting that extra effort in isn't the norm. So start caring about your employees and it will change. Now, they're probably just talking to the world in general. And I think this is...
they are. A lot of the times when so for the record, there's times where I interact with the audience.
Yeah.
And their tone drastically changes.
Once you interact,
because they just put their thoughts into the world as if no one's reading it, or everyone but the poster reads it, which is interesting. Yes. It's very interesting.
It is. And actually, when we've challenged, like I have on occasion, okay, because it's actually, I think it's good. It's good. It's entertaining. Yeah. And I actually think that the person who made the comment is kind of excited that you interacted with them, so they don't ever like take it like poorly or defensively, but I'll say something like, hey, yeah, thanks for taking a break on scrolling through all your social media to provide a absolutely useless comment. But I'm wondering, do you have the interest in providing feedback that would be challenging or useful for good banter? And I'll say it kind of just silly like that. And it's amazing how many people respond, like not only respectfully, but very intellectually. Mm-hmm. Like you're almost like, wow, this is the same person that made the first comment. And it's fun because then it can actually shape the way you think. It's a very good thing. But anyway, so this particular person's probably just angry at the world. Now, this section is about how to take feedback. So it's not just this feedback. Right. How do you take the first bit of feedback? Easily. Wow, this guy agrees with me. He's just as smart as me, right? That's how we arrogantly would take feedback. But, it feels good to have somebody agree with you, and you're like, okay. But this one here, if you take this personally, that's the problem. If you're like, people are waking up and realizing that companies and corporations don't care about them, so putting in the extra effort isn't the norm. Start caring about your employees and it will change. And, I do care about my people. How dare you say, he's not talking about me probably. No, maybe he is. I don't know this person and he clearly doesn't know me because I do actually put in the extra effort and I pay my people well. But, maybe he thinks that I don't, whatever. But it doesn't matter because there's a classic consider the source. And if you know who you are and what you're doing, you don't hear it personally and you just think, wow, this person is probably experiencing a whole lot of pain, okay? But this is the thing that I really want to say about this, and it's not so much about how to take feedback, but it's feedback on his feedback to help him. The reason I am doing what I am doing in Leading Giants, and you are assisting me in such a fantastic way, is to help people like this. Yeah. This person somehow believes that by doing a really bad job and not caring about the company because they don't care about you, they're going to want to give you a pay raise? Like, you have a bunch of employees that don't care and not put in the extra effort, and you think that the company is going to come back around going, let's reward that. No. This is a dumb idea. It's also a dumb idea to not pay your people if you're not paying your people and not inspire your people. Being a bad boss and a bad entrepreneur owner and being a bad employee are both bad ideas. And neither one of them provides a solution. And if you want to work hard and do a good job, you know what? Probably even some bad employers are going to treat you pretty fairly because you're going to stand out, and you might even advance into that organization where you now have the influence to make good change, or you at least leave with a good conscience, having become a better person, not a worse person, so you can go to a good organization and now with your new good habits do good things that are rewarded, or you can just become a worse version of yourself, cynical, skeptical, low-performing, lazy person, and experience victimhood your entire life. So that's why this person needs help. Oh, by the way, 10 people liked this comment, which is why I've always said to young people, hey, go look at feedback on social media, and you will never, ever wonder if you should have job security. Yeah. Like, you will see how responsibility, how respect, how just making a difference and contributing will make you stand out. And it's not going to be that hard to stand out because there's so many people wasting their time in life. Okay, should we go to the next couple here?
I was just going to say something real quick, Dave. It's interesting because one of two things is happening with this person. And I try to take the devil's advocate approach and the trying to be empathetic, which sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
I think maybe that person cared a lot and then felt defeated in not advancing in their career. And perhaps they just have lost hope, which is not good. So I think to your point, we're trying to bring that ability to say, hey, you can control your destiny. You could still do great things. Keep doing it. The opposite side of that, though, is...
Well, to spend time on that one for a moment.
Okay.
That could be very true. And I have empathy for that sort of person. But that sort of person suffers a little bit more privately. They generally don't go out of their way to be kind of a jerk.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, like, as soon as a person's like so motivated to take time out of their day to say a useless thing with false accusations to the general audience of the world, I have a tendency to be a little bit more in the camp of it's probably self-inflicted agony.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the whole 99.9% of delays are caused by X, Y, Z, and then maybe that 0.1%. So that 0.1% is just, unfortunately, a lot of entitlement. And to your point, it is a competitive advantage because somebody commented on there, the most boomer clip of the day that I've seen or something to that effect. Which for the
let's go to that one just really quick. Okay, it says very quickly, this is the most boomer clip I've seen all day. You know what I love about that? Is I'm a Gen Xer and my producer is a millennial. Neither one of us, quite a compliment to the boomers. That's all I can say.
And the guy that edited this is a Gen Zer.
Is a Gen Zer. He is the one who picked this point out because he thought it was the best one. So there are 3 generations, none boomer wise, that said that. But wow, that's pretty fascinating.
My point being is that to your point, Dave, it's a competitive advantage if you're a Gen Zer, if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Xer, look at your competition.
Yeah.
If you're not striving for greatness, I mean, hey, you're a crowd of many right there. But if you are, your competition, man, you can run laps past them.
Yeah. Here's another one. I like this one because it's benign. Because you and I both, got a decent number of degrees and books read between the two of us. And we still couldn't. Okay. I would agree that communication was unclear. If reaching out to a company to receive something is the norm, and this specific part is more important that needs to be communicated so the employee goes above and beyond their normal duties to get it. If that's the norm, they need to be indoctrinated into the bulk culture better. I don't know if that was a positive or a negative. That's like a 420 comment right there, man. That's like, I think that sounded intellectual to the person who wrote it.
I think that was AI, man.
It's like AI. I think, I actually, this is my belief. I think that person is probably smart. Okay. And they were either really, really, really tired. Or I don't know, because it doesn't really make sense. But I actually think they're probably agreeing with us. I think what they're saying is a good leader would be able to use the culture to raise the standard of the person. I think that's probably what they're saying. Okay, should we go to the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay. This is nice and all, but you're ineffectively communicating, hey, I need this thing by Wednesday. And that's not going to have your employees thinking, oh, I need to personally drive during my work hours to another company to personally retrieve that, especially when they have other to do on their job. If you want it done, say that it's the number one priority and to ignore other tasks until they complete this one. That's on you. Be a better boss and stop blaming your employees. Okay, now what I really love about this is the good part, like the wisdom in it. Like let's cover that first, because this person gets some props, despite their criticism of me. Okay, what is the prop? I teach this actually. Yeah. Like what I do is I say to somebody, and you've heard me say this to you, Nico. Hey, Nico, I have a project that needs to be done. Now I know you got a bunch of stuff on your plate. So if you don't have time to do this project, you can tell me what other stuff you're going to have to put off and when that will be, because this one needs to go to the front of the line. I understand you're one person with 24 hours in a day, and I can't make you turn water into wine. And that's fair because you're changing. So what they're doing is making the automatic assumption that I'm forcing a person to drive during personal time, which is really funny. Nothing about this says take time out of your personal day in my message at all. And also that I'm blaming employees. I'm not blaming employees. I'm telling employee the standard of professional conduct, which I also do myself. But I think that's the funny part about it is there's a lot of people who automatically put leadership and subordinate against each other. And think that's a very, very bad idea as a leader or a subordinate, okay? Not all leaders are against subordinates. Not all subordinates are against leaders. Not employees, all employees are bad, and not all bosses are good or bad. So that's what's so silly about it. It's to actually kind of identify the individual circumstance to see what's actually taking place. Usually when people write that sort of thing, it's a self-justification. And you can see in it that they're justifying. Or what it is that they actually had an experience of an unfair boss that did treat them that way, and they have a particular amount of insight which says they could have done this in a way that I would have listened and performed. In an overall sense, I really like this one, frankly speaking. I don't mind the personal shot because you can tell it's not really that personal. Right. And I think for the audience, what they're contributing here is very, very, very positive because it is excellent advice. If you are a leader and you're going to go to the person and you're going to say, hey, just so you know, this is priority number one, push everything else aside, and you're making it explicit and you're communicating effectively, that's a very, very good amount of feedback. So I'm going to say to running into life 818. That's pretty funny because I think that's a competitor. I saw that in their name now, taking their time out to throw down a criticism of the founder of their competitive company. Okay, go.
That's hilarious. I was going to say that, it's interesting for...
I'm glad that they're following me, though.
Yeah.
That's good.
Keeping tabs.
It's pretty awesome.
It's interesting because, I recently exited not exited in the way that you exited, but I left the 9.5-year corporate career to join forces with the Dragon Slayer himself here. And, I would always hear these conversations with people in the company I used to work for, and complaints. And in my head, I never said this, and I don't mean this to come off the wrong way, but if you're that tired of being an employer treated as a subordinate, go start your own business. See how hard it is.
Yeah.
And you'll go lead. Yeah. And then you'll see that it requires a certain level of tenacity, a certain level of risk that then kind of begets this level of respect and to a certain degree, loyalty or whatever you want to call it, that should be there rightfully so. Like, I feel like, most people don't equate it to like, hey man, this person or this group of people put their lives on the line, or, I mean, not figuratively speaking, right? To start this thing, maybe they know something that I don't, and they're willing to take a risk for me that I should perhaps kind of symbiotically try to, return.
It's kind of like the isms. right? Racism is bad. Sexism is bad. Anti-Semitism is bad. But that doesn't mean that there can't be a jerk of any race or any gender or any nationality that has nothing to do with their race, nationality, or gender and just their jerkness, right? So people get bossism-ish and subordinate-ism-ish. All bosses are bad. That's bossism-ish. You literally have a bias against somebody who has authority over you just because they have authority over you. And, and you may be right about some of them, but it doesn't make them all bad. And only a low virtue or a low intellect does not have the ability to separate the individual person and their behaviors and character from the large person at whole. Yep. I mean, it's an unfair thing.
Yeah, quipping on that a little bit, and then we'll get to another comment here. I remember back in the company I used to work for, this was early on in my career, I had, there was like 2 managers that I had, and both of them were just awesome people. They're great people. Mm-hmm. I didn't like their management style, but I knew that there was a lot of stuff within me that I needed to work on first before I picked apart their management style.
Yeah, that's smart.
They've been in this company for way longer. Mm-hmm. They've seen the ins and outs. And so whenever they called me out on XYZ, why didn't you meet this metric? I'm like, you're right. I need to work on that. It was so easy for me to fall into and into the general cultural fixation on, this person.
Oh, just attack. Well, the other thing too is we have to remember that all of us at some point are a little bit difficult to be around.
Oh yeah.
To say the employee is really hard. I wonder how hard it would be to work with me. I mean, let's reflect on that a little bit, right? I think that gives us more compassion for the other person and more of a willingness to correct the things about us that might be difficult because we're looking at them and we're seeing them, and it helps out. This is a good one here, Nico. It says, let's go to a positive one again. Millennial here, I 100% agree. Those who say companies don't care, don't put in the extra effort, will stifle themselves. Worked for a 9-to-5 corporate America, worked hard and smart. Anyway, just going to agree. I like that. Okay, let's go to another one though. Okay. I like this. That's my job, quote. In other words, they are attacking me on this. If you see their emojis, okay, they put it like a mask over it, like a COVID mask, something you would not see me wear. Says, that's my job. Like, in other words, I'm telling you to do something, right? So they're perceiving me as the dictator here. It's the law, okay? And then they've got the COVID mask with a person going like this, and then a sideways smile laughing, okay? Basically, this person and I would get along on those things, but they are somehow perceiving me as the authoritarian, mask-oriented, do-it-because-I-say-so person, which means they have never watched any other of my videos, right? But then they say, those are the same people, meaning me, who cry about history, but then would easily repeat it. Huh. Okay, so what's funny about this sort of thing is that the message that I was sending is very simply, complete the task. That's it, yeah. It's just that. It's complete the task. Communicate this to this person. And now what they're saying is, I don't need to. You telling me to communicate something to a person is bad. Mm-hmm. And if I abide by that, you're some dictator or ruler. What I have learned is the person who cannot receive that criticism is the actual dictator and ruler. The person who is unable to be subordinate to somebody else in authority is always the dictator. And I was subordinate to people in authority. I mean, I worked for other companies and I had bosses and I had parents. And when they asked me to do something, I listened. Now, there's a difference between a dictator or a person who's literally telling you to do something that is morally corrupt. And now at this point, you don't need to listen to their authority. But we need a part by Tuesday. Communicate to the person we need the part. Remember, that's the example that I'm giving, okay? I'm giving like a manufacturing example of we need a part to complete the project, and they are somehow saying, this is unnecessary, I do not have to do it. The gall of this boss to actually want the project complete is appalling. Here's what I want to do. I want that person who didn't do their job to go to every other person who's not going to get paid, who's not going to be able to do their job, who might have to get fired if the productivity is so low that the company doesn't keep up. And I want them to say, yeah, I don't want to do the job. Boss told me to, and I didn't do it because he's the boss, and bosses are bad. And so I don't care that you're unemployed. Stuff bothers me.
Yeah. Well, even on smaller projects, Dave, like, I come from a music background, and you experience this all the time in the creative world, unfortunately. I mean, we've experienced this with some stuff that we've done creatively as well. And, you'll ask for a specific thing and, at a specific time. And I don't know if it's just the creative world that does this more often. Maybe that's why, we're seeing a lot of these people come out the woodworks here on YouTube, because maybe you're dealing with a lot of creatives that follow their passion, right?
Right, exactly.
But that they don't get the thing done when it needs to get done. Perfect example. I need this mix and master done by this time so that we could release this song by this time. I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like, it's, even on something as fun and passion worthy.
They want power. See, this is what it is. People are starving for power. There's actually more than this too. And this sounds like a joke. I'm not making a joke. Many of these people are just interrupting their pornography long enough to actually make some stupid comment. So they're living in this like miserably lonely world, and they can't find satisfaction in that world. And because of that, they are just trying to find some sort of way to gather power and to be able to make some sort of comment might make them feel powerful. But that's a very tragic thing. I mean, it's one of the reasons that people drive slow in the fast lane. Some people drive slow in the fast lane because they just don't pay attention and they're not good drivers. Other people drive slow in the fast lane because they're controlling traffic and they love the feeling because they have no other power in their life. And so they're just going to have the power as long as they can have it. Yeah. And it's a silly thing. Here's another one. Okay. So do you pay your employees a fair, livable wage? It's a fair question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Starting off strong. I like this one. If not, even that. Then he starts with, which I highly doubt you do. Why? Why do you doubt that? I don't know why he doubts that. Which I highly doubt you do. How can you expect them to go above and beyond to care about the job at hand and fix something that they have zero control over? This is another victim thing. Zero control. Why do they have zero control? Yeah. Like literally, why do you have zero control? Here's where most people think they have zero control. I emailed them and I didn't hear back. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I have done with those people? I said, hey, I want to show you something. It's fantastic. I look up their number, I dial it. Hey, Bob, did you get an email saying we need the part on Tuesday? No, I didn't see that. Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah, sorry, I get so many emails, I didn't see it. It came through. Oh, okay, well, hey, we need the part. We need it by Tuesday. Now it's actually late. Any way we can get it today? Sure, I'll have it there in 2 hours. Okay, thank you. And that's the person who says, I have zero control. I have no control. A person who says, I have zero. They literally capitalized. How can you expect somebody to care about a job at hand and fix something they have zero control over? Nothing in my message said, fix something you have zero control over, okay? When you can't even bother to pay them fairly a livable wage. They make so many negative deductions about the world and about employers and about people they don't know anything about that this person will always be unhappy because they have no self-agency. This is absolutely a person who is incredibly fireable and unhireable. And I know, like I'm making a judgment of this person. I know what that person is like based on that language. Very, very clearly. Now, whether they were hurt or harmed or whatever, I don't really care. Because they're going out of their way, which demonstrates that they probably actually participated in a lot of harm that they had.
That's good. So my background, Dave, and not to keep inserting myself in this, because I want to provide a balanced perspective, because honestly, a lot of people will have their ism, like you said. They're like, oh, here's the CEO telling me da-da-da-da-da, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they automatically shut off. Mm-hmm. That's just the way, I don't know why people operate the way that way, but they do. But it's interesting because, so from the employee perspective, and I'm giving that perspective here, I worked in auto claims for 6.5 years. And I guarantee you all the people making those comments would have been the first people to raise up, I need to speak to a manager right now.
Yep.
When the thing didn't get done that needed to get done to get their car repaired and replaced in time for them to be able to get back to their life.
Yes.
And the reason why it didn't get done is because of that same mentality that they're, continuing to promote online, which ends up biting them in the ass, for lack of a better term. Sorry to spit. For lack of a better term. In those circumstances and situations.
I had to call a power company to get power on. What had happened is, and actually I have to take ownership on this. I had a staff person that when we bought a new building and we're working in the building, I said, hey, can you make sure you switch the power over? Now we purchased the building, take it off the person we put it in our name. They didn't do it. Okay, well, ultimately speaking, as the owner of the company, a subordinate not doing something I asked them to do is on me. That's not on the power company. I can't blame the power company. When you are in charge of an organization, you're ultimately in charge of everything that's happening there. I do think that my employee made an earnest effort to do this, but missed an email of confirmation or something of the sort, and it didn't actually trigger the action. So there needed to be a certain amount of empathy for the employee who didn't just ignore the order. They actually sincerely thought they had completed it. There was maybe a mild bit of kind of acceptable, lack of detail right there. Caused a problem. But here's the thing that happened. So I'm on the phone now with the power company, and I say, I need the power back on. Like, we're running meetings and we're shut down for the day. And so we got to be able to pay our bill, get the account set up, and run in 4 hours. Can you help us do this? Like they weren't even listening. Sir, what is the name of your account? I actually don't have an account there. Okay. The problem is that I don't have an account, but I need an account because we purchased the building and the account was never switched over. Okay, then your account number is what, sir? No. I want you to pay close attention to me now. I don't have an account. Then what's your phone number with us? I don't have a phone number with you. I don't have any account with you. I need to establish a brand new account. Okay, let me transfer you then. They transfer me right back to the original board, which brought me back to that same department. I went through this loop a couple of times. So finally I said, I need to be very clear. I've been on the phone for a long time. We've lost our power. I just need to get this done as quickly as possible. I know you got some switch in some back room that you can just flip on. Okay. They can, by the way. They literally do. They as it turned out, once I got to a competent person, it was on within 30 minutes. But I went through the entire process, and every single time for the first 2 or 3 employees that I talked to, not one of them stopped remotely to think, what would it be like to be running a company and lose power and have meetings and all sorts of things you need to be done? How can I help this person swiftly? Not one of them did. And the reason you knew it is because if you were listening to the conversation, I put it on speakerphone, there was somebody else with me in the room. Literally, they just were robotically going through information with zero context of the circumstance. Finally, I got to a person that had a soul. And you could tell. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, hold on. I will take care of this. Yep. And it was a very, very different experience. They had access to the same amount of information. The total difference was one person cared, the other person didn't care. And here's the crazy thing about an eco. That person will go home with more happiness. Yep. That's the type of person which gets the client to say, thank you. Now, they probably use thank lists for some of them. Thanks, damn it, and they hang up and they're angry anyway. But it gets a grateful person to say, oh my gosh, thank you very much. You're good at your job. I really appreciate it. Yep. And they leave knowing that they contributed something. But the other person leaves knowing that they literally didn't contribute anything, and they took every shortcut they could. And what's happening, and this is one of the reasons that this example of feedback, which we're doing 2 things with this, right? We're talking about the specific feedback and how to handle feedback, but the person who doesn't have agency, who doesn't care, okay, they think they're getting back at their boss by being lazy, but they're not. They're getting back, and maybe I represent their boss because I own a company and my power was shut down, so they're getting back at their boss and me. But you know what? They're also getting back at the cleaning staff here who had to go home early. and everybody else about that, their neighbor, possibly their mom or their sister, they're getting back at. And they don't have the ability to say, wait a second, goodness is goodness, badness is badness, and it doesn't matter what your role is in it. I'm going to do my role. I'm going to do my part to contribute here, and then I will be rewarded for that, as opposed to like expecting the other person to go first and rewarding me for being a jerk. Like that's the weird mentality that they have.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's good. Interestingly enough, Dave, when I did get out of the call center environment, because of the perspective that, frankly, like a lot of the things that you had said before and having met you before, through different circumstances, I started to adapt that. And instead of going the route of, let me just be lazy and whatever, just because there's certain circumstances out of my control that I feel like, I can't do my job effectively here. When I did get out of that call center environment, my career skyrocketed when I was in, middle management effectively is what I was in. And it goes to show that if you keep that, I'm just going to summarize and synthesize it, that it doesn't matter what you do as much as who you become in the process.
Yeah.
And if you focus on that instead of like, my manager is this, they don't care about me. That doesn't matter.
It's interesting. Like Dan Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A, their company is like kind of a really good leadership training program. And what works so well there is I'll basically say to this high school kid who's starting there, at the Fry or whatever, and I say, this is not a career job. Yeah. This is like a transitory job. You are going to be here and learn skills that are going to allow you to leave Chick-fil-A and go do something big in life because you learn how to be responsible here, or you can advance here and gain further responsibility, but you're not going to stay here. The problem now is that people will stay in an entry-level job without any willingness to make themselves better or to learn more. And now there are some people who are challenged and literally can't. Like they have a mental deficiency there that's not their fault. And through that cause, there's just to be admiration for what they're doing. We have to look at the individual and the circumstance to be fair. But for the average person who has the capacity to do more, what they try to do is they try to force the employer to provide benefits to a low-level person who has not merited anything more than an unskilled person would merit.
That's good. Yeah.
And that is not on the company. Yeah. I'm not going to pay you to do a widget pulling job as though you spent $400,000 educating yourself over a 6-year period of time and put 20 years in to learn how to lead at great risk. No, it's not the same. And for people to believe somehow that they just by way of showing up deserve what everybody else gets. And young people especially are confused by this. Like, just because I'm in the organization, I should have the authority to make decisions like everyone else. No, you shouldn't. And if this sounds like boomer, I don't care, because whatever company you found or is founded by people who think like you is going to be like a worker co-op that doesn't actually, and by the way, watch our video on worker co-ops and how ineffective those things are, as opposed to a company that has order and structure and maybe even a patriarchy. But I don't care if it's a matriarchy. I just have a leader, and I'd work for a matriarch. As long as she's smart and good, we'd have nothing to do. I literally would never pick my leader according to even their age, not their age, not their gender, not their sex, not their religion, not their personal, who they go home to, but according to whether or not they're going to lead effectively and be fair and take me and the organization to where it needs to go. That is how we should pick our leaders, not with any of these other things. And it's also how we should pick their team members that we have too. And that creates all sorts of unity in what we're doing. And it just eliminates ridiculous, stupid, people pit two good things against each other. You are a white man, therefore you are a member of a patriarchy who wants to abuse people and take over. Do you know what people do? They don't realize this. When you are the owner and CEO of a bigger company, and an HR issue comes by, every single lawyer that I have ever worked with, either inside an organization or outside with a major firm, asks this question: is it a man, a woman, or are they white? And if they say it's a white man, they say do whatever you want. Fire them, do whatever you want. Your call. If it is a woman or a minority, they say you can't do that. Dang. Literally, the lawyers say that. That is legal advice in 2024. Fire the white dude. He has no rights. He can't do anything about it. But everybody else, be careful. That might sound offensive, but I'm not the lawyer saying it.
Right.
Okay, like literally a minority super heavy duty sexually abused somebody. And there was like written proof of it. And we removed the person without question. But the steps that we had to go through were remarkable. We needed like an excessive burden of proof. But they said, is it a white guy? Why? Because then just fire him. You don't need any of that.
Yeah.
It said like, okay, is that fair? Like, that doesn't sound fair to me. It sounds to me like we would all either have the same protection or none at all.
Right.
But we wouldn't have protection based on something we don't have any merit in.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's good. It's interesting. It's a wild world that we live in, Dave.
That is a wild world. I mean, it's a crazy thing to actually have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've covered a lot of ground between the feedback, how to receive it, how to accept it. And I mean, a lot of different good topics here. Two things that I wanted to mention to our audiences. Number one is we have 2 programs that I think if you're wanting to learn to lead, CEO Giant Masterclass is available on leadinggiants.com. I think that's a great place to be if you want to go from entrepreneur to CEO. But more importantly, if you want to learn to lead and go from employee to potentially manager, executive, and that sort of thing. The second one is Forming the Giant. And we talk a lot about the virtues, ferreting off vice, and the transcendentals, which I think are good groundwork for building great culture in your organization, in your home, workplace, so on and so forth. Any parting words for this episode? This was fun, by the way. I like this format.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. I guess, in some ways I listen to this sort of thing and I go, do I sound jaded in this? Like you kind of replay or whatever. And I think, part of what you're doing here when you're on a podcast is you're making it a little bit more animated for the sake of the audience, right? But I think that, what's the most important thing in this is that we don't live by a standard that is not the standard that we wouldn't hold others to or that we wouldn't live by ourselves. Like fairness is fairness. The person should be judged by their character on an individual basis according to these things. And yet we should have a certain amount of empathy for people like we have in these sorts of things, but not take ourselves too seriously in that regard, which is, I think, an important thing. And if you do that, you can be a giant. We can go slay some dragons.
Hey there, Giant. Thanks for watching Durand On Demand. I need your help with something. The world desperately needs more giants. You know it, and I know it. We've been around a lot of people struggling, figuring out how to make things go. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with as many people as you can. We're going to build this audience, and we're going to help people slay dragons together.